And welcome, everyone, to Rock M Radio. This is the beginning of a brand new episode of Dive Cuts. We are live on YouTube for Rock M Plus subscribers. It is season 8, and we're here to talk about all things Missouri basketball. As the only podcast strictly talking about the Mizzou basketball Tigers. I am your host, Sam Snelling. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can see me on your left. Please take a moment to hit the like button below. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Helps us grow a little bit. Back again with the white Vans, clean haircut, looking good. No cap on the dome this go around. Mr. Matthew J. Harris. Matt, how are you?
We need the portal to close, man. We need the portal to close. That's all I'll say. We just need the portal to close.
Has anybody entered the transfer portal since we hopped online?
I mean, I'm sure someone has. I mean, I'm sure like there is someone whose paperwork has been submitted while we've been on the air for a minute and 5 seconds. But yeah, I'm sure that there's some kid out there just getting ready to leave and go find his opportunity.
So, well, let's talk about the transfer portal since that's why we're here. It gives us life this time of year. Talking about, I think we actually have the banner going for our good friends majority
rule. I mean,
so I gotta turn this off real quick.
I mean, isn't Portal Combat itself a sport? You could argue it is itself a brutal act.
Yeah, there we go. Okay.
Concept.
Yes. So, transfer portal, back on it. Here we are. Missouri has had 2 scholarship players go in. JV Brown and Danny Stevens also entered. But the 2 main guys, like off the roster, Aiden Shaw, no surprise there. Marcus Allen, a little bit of a surprise. I'm actually kind of putting together a little piece on it. Like, I think I'm going to do like player reviews so we can kind of cover those. Aiden Shaw, any shock there for you?
No. I think we sort of talked about it in the build up to the end of the season, or the wind down, I should say. I don't know that Aiden would have had any more runway next year to a bigger role. I think if he had wanted a bigger role and a more consistent presence, he was going to have to go elsewhere. Missouri wasn't looking to move him out. I think there's just sort of an understanding that like the situation is with what it is in Columbia. Aiden took that and decided that he would like to search somewhere else, and hopefully he finds it on Chestnut Hill in Boston with Boston College. Not a shock there that Aiden decided to move on and go try and reboot somewhere else.
Yeah, and he's right down the road from his sister, who committed to Harvard, I want to say last year or 2 years ago.
Yeah, this year.
This past year, yeah. Year. So they'll have they'll have Shaw family trips to Boston. Lovely area. Maybe less so in the winter when you're attending basketball games, but that's why they play these games in gymnasiums, Matthew.
Yes.
Marcus Allen going in, a little bit more of a surprise. I think of all the freshmen, a lot of people probably would have had him maybe the most likely to be staying because of him sort of garnering the largest role on the team this past year. From everything that we've sort of talked about on the forums, and even privately with sources, etc., I don't know that necessarily would have been the case for me. I always sort of thought things were safe with Honor, maybe the most. The vibe check there was always really good, really positive. Marcus, I think I'm surprised he entered, but I was probably thinking more like 75-25 as opposed to Honor was probably more in like the 90% range. Mainly because like there was a glut of players at his position. We sort of saw him as a combo forward. He didn't really, show a whole lot of athleticism. He's a very sort of high IQ defender, does a lot of things well in that end of the floor. But certainly not explosive, certainly not a guy that you were counting on for offense. And there were all these dudes ahead of him. And so, yeah, like the crunch was going to be real for him for at least another year. And it turns out he wasn't wanting to wait around.
Yeah, I think if anybody kind of digs in, but just kind of pokes around Marcus's background, he's been a guy that's gone and, gone a place for a year. He came out of Miami, Norland High School, went out west to AZ Compass Prep for a year, kind of got stuck in the same role he had here, which is he was in the starting five, but he was in there to guard, be a good team defender, rebound, play off the ball, cut, get on the glass, maybe occasionally put the ball on the deck and drive. But he was out there because he was a good team defender, high IQ defender. Then went back to Norland after a year because there was a bigger role there. Then after, his final 17U summer on the grassroots circuit, he had been a longtime guy with Florida Rebels. But they had Carter Knox and Liam McNeely at the wing spot, and he was a 4. And in the July period before his senior year of high school, he left to go play for SOH Elite because they laid him on the wing more and let him handle the ball. So there was always this sort of, I think, searching ability to kind of find a little bit more of a premier role offensively. And he was not going to be a wing here. And so I think that was, I think long term, even if he hadn't left this offseason, I think if there had been an aspiration to play on the wing, that would have run up against the reality of Anna Batang is here. They are doggedly recruiting Jason Andrews in 2026. There would have been always a little bit of a logjam at that position for him. And, from what I was told, this was not a, minutes issue. This was not a usage issue. And it probably wasn't even. So I think you get into these spots where guys have concepts of what they are, where they want to be long term. The staff, I think was candid with him about where he was going to be, in the pecking order and positionally. And, if a guy doesn't want to do that and doesn't want to be part of that, then he doesn't have to be. So I think that's kind of, I think, some factors that were at play here. But if you had said to me that Marcus was going to go, I would not have been entirely surprised that was the case. I think there had been some past things that sort of said maybe he might explore that option. So hopefully he finds kind of what he's looking for when he, lands somewhere else, but we'll see kind of what that comes to pass there. But I think long-term, there may have to be some acceptance that he's probably going to be a 4-man, and that doesn't mean he can't be successful in that role. But I think that at some point there's going to have to be what your aspirations are, and then what coaching staffs are telling you is probably the best fit for you.
Yeah. And I liked your sort of, you sort of equated it to like the Mohammed, I just lost his
Mo Diarra. Mo Diarra.
I couldn't get Diabate out of my head for some reason. So Mo Diarra, who didn't really want to play the 5. Mizzou saw him as a 5, and he went to NC State because they were going to play up with the 4.
And they played him at the 5.
They did at least play him with another big dude. So so 4 or 5, but yeah, Missouri was definitely going to be playing with the 5. I did like that comparison. I think it's fair. And another thing that I sort of pointed out on the forums as well is talking about there are so many guys who sort of see themselves as playing up in position and the reality is like you're probably better playing down in position. And I think the thing that I always point to with these guys is Draymond Green has made $200 million in the NBA being a 6'6" small ball 5. He's a tenacious defender. He's barely passable offensively, but he defends like crazy. He's, on a good day, maybe 6'7", and he's been in the league for what, 15 years, something like that. So it's just like, I get what your boys, your trainers, whatever, all that stuff. All you got to look at is, how am I going to make money at this professionally? And if you're, a dude like Marcus Allen, who's not a robust athlete, he moves well. Don't get me wrong. Like, he moves well laterally, and he does all the things that you want to see defensively. Like, I would be showing him Draymond film until until the end of the day. This is who you could be if you apply yourself. Just be passable offensively, and you could have a career in the NBA. So, and to me, like, I would think that would be most guys' dream, is kind of ending up in that spot.
I think you've always talked about, you are who you guard. That to me is how your positional assignment always works. Who are you guarding? And Marcus Allen was not guarding wings. He didn't guard wings when he was in grassroots. He didn't guard wings when he was in high school. He guarded fours. And so, like, all the skill work is great, and it's good to have the ability to, have some base, dribble counters. It's good to have some different finishing moves around the rim if you need them. But ultimately, like, when you get to this level, or when you get to the NBA level, it's going to be, who are you guarding? And, even if you play in an all switching scheme and you can switch 1 to 4, who's your primary assignment? When you sit there in scout and they call you out and say, who are you guarding? Are you guarding a wing, or are you guarding a 4? And it's a 4. So I think that there has to be some acceptance at a certain point as to, okay, I would like to be able to try and do some different things offensively, but this is the role I'm going to play, is at the 4. So we'll see where Marcus goes and sort of how he's used at his next stop. But I'm not surprised that there may have been some aspirations to play the wing, and then maybe that ran into the reality of being a 4. But frankly, in this day and age, you're going to lose guys. Yeah. I mean, I think that's the one thing we talk. Mizzou's had 9 high school recruits. They kept 6 of them, which is impressive in this day and age, to basically keep 2 out of every 3 guys in the class. Because eventually there's always going to be one guy, and if you're averaging 3 guys a class who are probably not going to be happy with their role and leave in the portal. So Mizzou's doing about as well as you can in terms of retention rate. So they might have lost somebody. Marcus just happened to be the guy this year.
So one of the things that may have pushed him out the door a little bit, Mizzou signed Javon Porter, which admittedly was a little bit of a surprise to me. I was, I thought we were kind of done with the Porters. It's been a lot. If you took away his last name, I do get the intrigue. He's 6'11", moves well, skilled offensively. He is a Porter. So there's offensive skill. He's never quite put it all together at the college level. When you sort of, wrapping your head around the idea that Porter was going to be on the roster, what was going through your head?
I think early on when the name came around, I think we were just so locked into what they absolutely needed, which is they needed a combo guard and they needed a post.
Yeah.
And so when that name came up first, I think the first thing I thought was, well, yeah, he went in the portal. It's not a shock, but is the timing going to be there because Missouri has other needs? But as that week went on and, more information came in, it didn't surprise me ultimately when they made that move. I think the understanding we have is that this is almost sort of insurance in a certain way. It's probably, that's how we described it, is, Trent Pierce didn't have a great end to his sophomore season. Mizzou showed faith and stuck with him over the last month, kept him in the starting lineup, kept playing about 50% of minutes at the 4. But you go into the offseason, Trent got a long runway this year to show he could be that guy at the 4 in that stretch 4 position. Didn't quite come together. And, kind of got in his own head at the end there. So now you're like, okay, we've given him 2 off seasons. He's going to come back, but do we need to have another guy there that's a skilled kind of big stretch 4 who can shoot it or has good shooting mechanics and push Trent that way. So I think that's one aspect. Also, like, theoretically, this would also improve competition in practice for Mark Mitchell. So you're getting guys now who know that if Javon Porter can put some pieces together, he's going to compete for minutes. So now you have to bring it every day. There's no sense of ease there. But look, that they want to use Mark at the 4. And if they use Mark at the 4 majority of the time, that's going to be 20 minutes a game. That's going to leave 20 minutes for the other two guys. And if Mark's really good, he's going to play 24 minutes at the 4. So, I think if you look at it, it's like, oh, why are they bringing in Javon? If Mark Mitchell is doing what Mark Mitchell is supposed to do, there's going to be a cap on minutes at that position. Well, is Javon a small ball 5? No, he's not a 5. He's not a 5. He has never guarded 5s. He's a stretch 4. So, I think that's when I thought about it. It made more sense as it went along to say, okay, Watkins, I think, put it best. This is an all-state insurance liability package at the 4 for you. You got a skilled guy who kind of does a little bit what Trent does. Trent knows he's not just going to be able to sleepwalk into 15 to 20 minutes a game. He's going to have to earn them. And if the rehab hits, for Javon, you've got a guy at a really, probably market rate or slightly less. It can work. I think, like if you took the name off of it and said, hey, this is what we were doing, I would have said, you didn't wait for other stretch 4s to go into the portal. That was, but it is what it is. But I think if Javon is clear on what this is too, him getting out of a comfort zone, him getting into an environment where he's going to be pushed, where there's not a godfather figure, literally a godfather figure coaching him, and he's going to be facing some honesty and some, fair critiques, and it opens it up and he embraces that and pushes himself. Maybe he gets something out of this final year, and maybe he's back in an environment where he's got a good support system around him. So I think it can work. I think everyone just needs to understand going in, the baseline here is a solid stretch 4 option coming in off the bench, because Mark Mitchell should be the guy at the 4 position for them. So we'll see how it goes, but it makes some sense, once you sit down and kind of work through it a little bit.
Well, moving right through the additions now. I know everybody was thrilled with this pickup, but we're going to talk about Luke Northweather. I'm going to temper some expectations up front by saying, once I saw Luke go into the portal, I did not think he was going to end up at Missouri. However, I don't think if this is the only guy that they end up adding at the post, we might have some critiques on how this was handled. But realistically, this isn't a guy that they're looking at as helping them much next year. I don't know that anybody's going to be able to hear what you just said.
Parker Brown. If this goes well, if this is what it is, it's a guy who you see a lot in bye games at the end or blowouts in conference play.
Mm-hmm. We'll say if you want to look at the absolute positive for what he can provide, he did play at least replacement level big minutes on a tournament team. So but he didn't play a lot. It was 10, 11 minutes.
8 minutes.
I would be surprised if he factors into the rotation, at least throughout the SEC conference play. You can
with roster cap limits coming in at 15. You got it even spots 13, 14, 15 now almost have to become your walk-on or your deep reserve or your practice player spots. Yeah. Luke averaged 8 to 10 minutes a game over 2 years after taking a redshirt year in Norman. I don't think there's a renaissance coming here. So I think if you look at, what Missouri did, and this is probably the easiest way to say it, the two guys that left, Marcus Allen and Aiden Shaw, were 10th and 11th in minutes. Javon Porter's going to come in and maybe be 9th or 10th in the rotation. They also lost, both their walk-ons. If the sophomores at the back of the rotation, T.O. Barrett, Honor Batang, and Peyton Marshall do what they're supposed to, they're going to move up past the 10th spot in the rotation.
Yeah.
What does that leave at the bottom of the rotation? 12, 13, and 14. Guess who's here now? Luke Northweather. Yeah. If development does what it's supposed to do, they will push past Luke Northweather, and he will slide into that kind of back into the spot, and everyone who was freaking out Sunday will be like, oh, he's just kind of a practice guy. Yes. Now, if Luke is cool with that and he didn't want to go find, more minutes at a mid-major, at an MVC school or a Valley school or an OVC school, that's fine. As long as everybody's on the same page about him coming in and what this is, that's fine. I just think everyone has to kind of go in clear-eyed again about what this is, which is, would you rather have a walk-on, like a straight walk-on, or would you rather have a guy who has been in an SEC program and played 8 to 10 minutes a game as your 15th guy on the bench and as your practice guy for your bigs? That's an upgrade at that spot in the roster. So I think that's what you have to treat it as, is we're upgrading overall depth and quality in practice that we're going to have and that our bigs are going to see every day. So, and
if he is, and I'm assuming like these are the conversations that have already been had, like if he's comfortable, like fitting in, like you have a guy who's, a local guy, wants to be there, like wants to, to help, the home school, all those kinds of things. They didn't really have space for him, when he was originally a high school recruit. I know they kind of looked at him, and so now he gets to kind of come back. He's had, time away from home. He knows what he wants. At least, these are assumptions I'm making. He knows what he wants. He's got to at least understand that, if he turns into an All-American, great. It's not very likely to happen. So I think everybody is kind of on board with saying, look, we like you as a program guy. And if you're replacing, like you said, like Aiden Shaw, as somebody with, who can actually come in and in those sort of squeeze scenarios where you have to go that deep into the bench. You have a guy who has played at the level, at least at a replacement level, and he can hit a three every now and again. So
and that's how it was framed to me. If you have to get deep into the bench, you're getting a guy who's played some and played in the SEC and kind of understands what it means. So I think it's smart use of a back end of a roster spot. They're going to keep looking at in the 5 market. So I think there hadn't been a lot of activity, and then that happened, and people who were just starved for activity freaked out.
Yeah.
But then Monday happened, and everybody reset and was copacetic again.
So on Monday, Missouri added UCLA guard transfer Sebastian Mack, a native of Chicago, Illinois, Dennis Gates' backyard. Played his high school ball in Las Vegas at Coronado. Did I have that right?
Started somewhere else and then finished up at Coronado. He was out at 2 high schools out there.
And then played for 2 years. Had a really, really sort of nice season on a not very good UCLA team as a freshman. Stepped into a little bit more of a reserve combination. I mean,
he was a 6-man
start low. Yeah, he was playing a lot. Big body guard, physical driver. Jump shot needs a little bit of work. But I think everybody's pretty excited for this, and you can include me in that, mostly because if the rumors are true, I think what they did is they got a really nice guard at below market value.
Yeah. We'll start with the market stuff because we talk about it a lot. The market rate for a guard, like a mid-major guard that scored 13 to 15 points a game, is $1 million. seven figures off the rip. So that's quite a bit more than what you would have paid last year. Like reports are broadly, and at least what we've heard too, is 30% higher than what you paid last year. So a guard that was a really good mid-major guard last year was probably what, $700,000.
Yeah.
Now it's $1 million. And those guys, as we know, typically take a hit in usage and a hit in minutes in order to maintain their efficiency. So you wind up paying a premium for a guy who in some cases may wind up as your fourth or fifth starter. So there's a crunch there. Sebastian Mack fell to sixth in the rotation this year because UCLA went out and overhauled its backcourt. And Mick Cronin needed to see more out of him defensively. And he got better defensively, but they brought in a lot of guards to Westwood, and Mack sort of got pushed down the ladder a little bit. But when you look at his data and when you look at his film, which both of you can see at the main site, we have in the commitment piece, he's a fantastic driver out of ball screens. You can put him in basic ball screen actions, and he's going to get 2 feet in the paint, and he's either going to get a rim attempt or he's going to get hacked. His free throw rate is absurd, and his rim finishing rate is really good. So 2 years ago, Dennis Gates said, we can't fucking draw fouls. Well, Sebastian Mack draws fouls. He plays to the rim. A little bit of a tunnel vision as a driver that irked Mick Cronin a little bit at times, that he could put his head down and be a little bit, play a little bit of blinders on. But the kid absolutely can drive out of ball screens, can drive out of spot ups, get 2 feet in the paint, and he's going to attack. Mizzou, I would argue, didn't have a really good guy like that. Tony Perkins was supposed to be that, but if you watched him in pick and rolls, Tony was not getting shoulder to shoulder with his big, turning tight and going a lot of times. Sebastian Mack will do that. Once he puts the ball down and turns off that ball screen, he's getting to the paint.
Right.
If you were to look at his rim finishing rates and his pick and roll scoring rates, they are slightly better than Silas Dimery, who signed with UConn for solidly 7 figures. What separates those two? Shooting off the catch. Only thing that separates them. Watkins and I looked at this because we're sickos and broken that way. If Silas Dimery not Silas Dimery, but if Sebastian Mack hits 10 to 12 more threes next year, his 3-point clip is probably in the mid-30s. And he's probably averaging 12 points a game off the bench, 80th percentile in rim finishing out of pick and rolls, and shooting 35% off the catch. You know what he's doing? Commanding 7 figures.
Yeah.
So to get him for where Mizzou probably got him, they are getting a guy that if he just gets in the gym and just gets to average as a shooter, I don't need Sebastian Mack shooting 39% off the catch.
Yeah.
If he shoots 34%, slightly below the Division I median, with his minutes back to where they used to be, he projects to be a 13 to 14 point a game guy. That's why Watkins and I are excited, because it's really just finding some consistency shooting, narrowing the gap between what he shoots off when with a hand in his face and what he doesn't, and when he's open. But the guy does what you want to do. He drives the ball. He absolutely can create turnovers on the defensive end. And if the goal is just stabilizing the jumper, you got a guy who probably should have commanded 300 or 400K more in the portal for a relative steal. And that's how you've got to operate this time of year. You've got to be able to find guys who I think do 80% of what you need them to do, and then say, and then the things you have to fix have to just kind of, I think, be more rep based. And that's, I think, what it's got to be with him. There's going to be some mechanical issues you have to smooth out, but I think at the price point that Missouri likely paid, and with what was there, it's a really, really good pickup for them. And it's going to fit nicely into their backcourt now, because you've got T.O. Barrett, who can play off and attack. They're going to have Aaron Rowe, who's got to put on some weight, but that guy wants to attack out of ball screens. And now you've got Sebastian Mack, who wants to attack out of ball screens, and Honor Batang can attack off the catch. So now you're starting to add a lot of guys that can play downhill and play direct to the rim, which we didn't see a whole lot of against Drake. But if they can develop this backcourt the way it needs to be, they're going to have 3-4 guys that can start playing off the catch, ripping through and attacking and getting 2 feet in the paint.
And I think when you go into the off season and you're looking at, okay, like, what are we looking to replace? We're looking to replace, like Caleb Grill and Tamar Bates on the perimeter. We're looking to add scoring punch. Now you're hoping that you're going to get some increased production from Ant. You probably want, maybe a little bit better efficiency from Mark, maybe a few more points a game consistently. And then you're hoping that, a lot of your freshmen are going to take another step forward. But you're still looking at, we need a combo guard who can get to the rim. And that's exactly the guy that they found, right? Which is funny because, like, the whole time that like all these guys are coming into the portal, and of course, you see, like Donovan Dent. Everybody wants a guy like that. UCLA is going to pay him $3 million to do his thing, in Westwood. Okay. Now there was a report yesterday, today. Robert Wright, the Baylor transfer, is getting $3.5 million. It's always nice to look at guys like that. I think Quaintance is another sort of high price, high value, super talented dude who you're like, oh man, like that'd be great if we could get him. The reality is like Missouri has a lot of dudes coming back who you're going to have to pay if you want to keep them happy. Like Mark Mitchell. Certainly is getting a pay raise. Ant Robinson
could go get multi-millions out of the portal if he wanted to.
Yeah,
Mark could go get could get $2 million plus if he went in.
Yeah, when we talked about that, JT Toppin reportedly got $4 million from Texas Tech, and look, JT Toppin is a better version of Mark Mitchell, but they're similar players. JT Toppin was the Big 12 Player of the Year. Mark Mitchell was second team All SEC on a team that earned a 6th seed, was ranked in the top 25 for most of the second half of the season. Like, he was Missouri's best player. And I, very easily, like if you're Mark Mitchell's agent, and, Mark Mitchell, if you're listening to this, just mute the next part. But it's very, very easy for me to see him going into the market. And if that guy's getting $4 million, to at least be asking for $3 million. Now, maybe you don't get $3 million, but you're probably getting close in this market. And so I don't we don't know the exact numbers that Missouri is spending on guys. I'm willing to bet they're probably, found more money for Mark Mitchell based upon what they were paying him last year, which I'm pretty sure was under $1 million. If it should be over $1 million. And so you're having to kind of increase all these other dudes' pay to be able to get a guy who has already been on an NCAA tournament team, been in the rotation, and has been giving that team roughly 10 points a game, with minutes. If you can get just a little bit more of that jumper, then all of a sudden it's just like this investment is just going to pay off. And
you've replaced Tamar Bates scoring if the jumper hits.
Yeah.
He's more prone to drive it, whereas Tamar was more prone to shoot off the catch, but at similar usage rates and similar points per possession, you should be able to get most back of what you got out of Tamar if the jumper can stabilize, which is the decision you have to make. The best way to look at Sebastian Mack is his forecasted BPR is about 3.26. Daydan Thomas, who signed at LSU, is at 3.3. Daydan Thomas reportedly signed for $2 million. Zoo didn't come close to paying $2 million for Sebastian Mack.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of thing you have to look at in this market is Daydan Thomas was less efficient. Now, what people in Baton Rouge would say, oh, we're going to get him in there and we're going to just broadly speaking, he was about 15% less efficient than Sebastian Mack. And LSU probably paid 2-3 times what Missouri is paying. So that's realistically what you have to look at here is we can talk about, it would be nice to go get Omari Peterson, who has got a lesser BPR than Sebastian Mack, and is probably going to make significantly more at the University of Washington. So what Missouri did here was, again, they found a guy who did 80% of what they want to do, and they found a guy too who, again, not a ton of question marks elsewhere aside of, can we just get the jumper to be normal? And if it does, you've hit, and you've definitely found a market inefficiency there.
And I would also add that if T.O. and Honor take a similar step to what Ant did this last, or either or, in that scenario, like
You've replaced girls scoring.
You're looking pretty good in your backcourt. You've got multiple ball handlers. Mac, a little bit more of a combo guard, but he's certainly capable of bringing the ball up and initiating offense. So now you've got roughly those three guys plus Aaron Rowe, as your ball handlers. The three guys being Ant, T.O., and Sebastian.
Yeah.
I think that when we were talking about like the different sort of ways they could go, I think without spending $2 or $3 million on a player, this is about as good of a move as you could have made.
It's a fantastic move for all the factors that we just discussed. And I think one thing people have to keep in mind is too, Missouri's bringing back the second most production in the SEC next year. Everyone around them is making all these moves, all this flurry of activity. They have to, because they have 6, 7, 8 roster spots they have to fill. Missouri had 3 core roster spots, maybe just 2 at the guard spots they had to fill. But I think the one thing I keep coming back to is the one thing that wins, and Evan Maya shared it on, Twitter after the game, and I wrote about it last spring for UConn. You know what wins in March? Experience and continuity. And you don't get continuity if you don't keep guys, and you don't develop them, and you don't play them.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. It's so easy this time of year to be like, oh, we got to go get this guy. We got to go get. You spent 3 years recruiting Honor Batang. Honor Batang has all the physical traits to be a really good wing. You know what you have to do? What Missouri has to do? Coach him. Develop him. We used to do that for 80 years in this sport.
Yeah.
Not this. Now it's like, oh God, we had to develop someone. Oh my God. Yeah. A lot of great coaches did that. So you got to, T.O. Barrett's got to get better off the catch. Yeah. You get him in the gym. You get him with a GA. You work with him consistently over multiple sessions to get his hand placement right and get his shot better. And then you just have him shoot 1,000 jumpers a day. Or you have him get in game rep situations and you have him get confidence shooting it. Honor Batang's handle's got to tighten up. We got to get better. You know what you do? Get in the gym and you work with them. Like that. I would rather, and people will always, come back and throw it in your face saying, oh, you said this. I would rather Mizzou go out and get a guy like Sebastian Mack, work on repping his jumper out and turn him into a 13-point a game guy, and then say, we're going to develop T.O. and Honor alongside him. Because if you do that, you get those guys for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. And
you get player control. And you know what? You can probably give them incremental raises. You get cost control. So, yeah, I mean, I guess you could be upset that Missouri didn't go out and buy a 18-point a game score and then, overpay for another 10-point a game guy. But you know what they're going to do? They're going to bring in Sebastian Mack. He does most of what they want to do. They can develop Honor Batang. They can develop T.O. Barrett. They can get Trent Pierce, hopefully, to a confident place as a shooter. And if T.O. evolves, if Honor evolves, and if Trent evolves, you know what you've done? You've replaced Caleb Grill. You've replaced that scoring, and you didn't have to spend a lot of money in the portal to do it. So I think that we have to be okay with embracing some risk that comes with player development. It's because, look, it was fun to talk about, what did they get Jaden Quaintance? They were never going to get Jaden Quaintance because Jaden Quaintance has never been a guy who's ever going to give up money. That family's never equivocate for a better situation. They're always going to leverage.
They went to Arizona State for his freshman year. Like, he could have gone to really taken slightly less money and
gone to a really good program.
Gone to a really good program, and they went to Arizona State. So, yeah, I think at that point I felt pretty confident that even if he did enter the portal, that Missouri wasn't going to be a serious consideration.
So I think that's where I would have been more stressed if they had like not done Sebastian Mack and kept looking, because I don't think they would have found anything at the price point and sort of the mix of factors and skill that they're getting with Mack. But right now they've got 2 spots left. They're probably going to try and find a big. The market has dipped a bit there, so you're probably going to have to take a replacement level big again. But you know what you have to do? You got Trent Burns.
Yeah.
You got Peyton Marshall. You got Nick Randall coming in. You know what you do? What do you do, Sam?
You want to develop them?
Yeah. It's a crazy idea. Develop them. You love Peyton.
So you did bring up, like the remaining spots, and they do have remaining spots because there's 15 now, and Missouri has, I believe, 2 spots left.
Yeah, 2 spots left.
They're looking for somebody who can shoot the basketball, on catch and shoots with reasonable size for a guard, and they're looking for a big. Which at this point, if you're not looking to spend a whole lot of money, like the market for bigs is tight. There's plenty of dudes. I think what you're hoping for at this point is a guy who's similar to Josh Gray, but maybe who can catch the ball a little bit better and finish a little bit better.
Yeah. I wrote about it last year, wrote about the year before. If you need a big, an elite starter level big, you need to decide that in January. You need to budget for it in February. And in the first 2 weeks of the portal, you better move aggressively to get it, because they don't stay on the market long. Big men have been deprioritized as a position, as an offensive threat. So that's already kind of capped your supply. Then the ones who go into the portal are so in demand that they can charge easily 6 figures. We had mid-major bigs averaging 11 and 8 asking for north of $1 million. So when people sit around saying, they're going to go get another replacement level big. Yeah, because really, really good bigs are going to command $1.5 million north. And then you know what you don't get to buy? If you'd done that last year, you know who you don't get to buy? Mark Mitchell.
Yeah.
You know who you don't get to get this year? You don't get Sebastian Mack this year. So again, the solution is recruit a guy, develop him the way you want internally, live through growing pains, and then pay him retention money. Right now, Missouri's on a carousel where they're having to go in every year and get a replacement level big because they haven't quite developed a solution in-house. That's probably where I think they'll wind up this year. There are guys that Watkins and I like Giovanni Imajuru from George Mason. We looked at Caden Powell today from Rice. If you are a sicko like us and you would like to go find those guys and try and film with them, you know what you're going to be like, oh man, these guys look an awful lot like Josh Gray. Yes, they finish around the rim. They rebound. Their post games are pretty raw, but they do what you need a big to do. And you can play them 18 minutes a game tops. So I think that's where you are. You just have to, we can either sit around and complain about the big that Missouri will ultimately sign, or we can just understand that the long-term solution here is developing a big inside Mizzou Arena during the summer.
Yeah.
And until that happens,
getting Peyton, getting Trent, getting, even Nick Randall, getting those guys ready to go. And, the likelihood that you're going to have a breakout all SEC guy next year is probably low. But I mean, that's what you're paying Mark Mitchell for. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think you need, I don't think you need one of these guys who, you're going to count on to give you 12 to 15 points at the 5. Yeah. You've got Mark Mitchell. You're probably going to play some combination of Trent and Javon now, with Mark for at least some stretches. You're hoping that Peyton and Trent can kind of come in and be serviceable and their roles there. But your point production is going to come from your guards. And you're hoping at this point that Ant can kind of find that consistency and be, instead of being a 9-10 point kind of guy at the end of the season, like he can be a 14-15 point guy. And if that's what you're looking at, then yeah, you don't need like Owen Freeman or whoever. What was the Tilly?
Christoph Tilly.
Christoph. I almost said
Nick. You don't need Nick Davis.
I almost said Chris, but
you don't need Nick Davis. You don't need Christoph Tilly. You don't need Braden Huff. You don't need guys like that. You can find a way to develop your bigs and get them through. So
yeah,
that's they need a wing. We've been keeping an eye on Kai and Evans. I don't think that's going to happen.
That's the funny part about that, really is it does seem at this point like it's trending towards North Carolina. And if anything is like remotely close to like some of the rumored numbers on him going to North Carolina and being like a primary ball handler, when we were looking at him on film, and I'm thinking, hey, like I would take him as a depth piece. Like if he's your 8th or 9th guy, yeah, like you bring him in, he can bang in some jumpers, he can be, consistent enough, he can bring the ball up. Yeah, like I'm for that. And North Carolina's possibly giving him like $1 million and to be like a primary ball handler, like Hubert, buddy, what are we doing? Like I know they're having some turnover there. I know, Cadeau went to Michigan and they're bringing Seth Trimble back, but now you've got like, again, you're small at your point guard, your 2 guard. I guess, they're hoping to get Jaron Stevenson. Look, I thought Kyan Evans would be a good fit for Missouri. As it turns out, there are other people that really believe in his ability far more than I do, as far as, the impact that he can play, and they're willing to pay for it. I don't think Missouri should be close to matching anything like that. If he wants to take significantly less to play for Missouri, great. I don't think that's going to happen.
No, this is where I feel like some people will be like, "Oh, you're bashing Kyan Evans." I am not. Kyan Evans got significantly better as a sophomore. Kid, I've watched entirely too much film of him. He was really great coming down, initiating Princeton level sets, which we know don't require an on-ball dynamo. You come down, you trigger, you space off. Maybe you're passing and you're moving within the flow of an offense, but a lot of times Kyan was flexing off the ball as a spacer and a shooter. He'd bring the ball up, he'd enter the pass to the big, and then flex off. When you put him in a pick and roll, the numbers were gnarly. Like 30th percentile in the country for scoring efficiency, turnover rates in pick and roll at 26%.
Yeah.
Like, even if you believe in a guy, the Mountain West is not a bad conference. And he was not on a bad team in the Mountain West Conference.
Well,
if you were
he is going to a comparable conference in the ACC.
Even more reason to look at it, though. So that's my thing here. Is I think you can say a guy does a lot of things really well, really, really well. You can believe in his potential, but what role is he stepping into? If Hubert Davis wants to make him a primary ball handler and a primary creator in a 5-out pick and roll heavy offense, the data says that's probably a poor decision. And if that's the role that Evans is seeking, and Missouri, brings him in and says, actually, we're going to have you do this, is that the right fit? And look, I don't begrudge guys for getting paid.
Yeah.
These guys were denied their fair market value for damn near a century. Go get paid if you want to get paid. But if somebody winds up paying more for Kyan Evans than what Sebastian Mack is getting, a guy who averaged 10, 11, 12 points in a high major league on less usage, then we've got what we're talking about here is not Kyan Evans as a player. We're talking about programs not evaluating value at a very, very efficient level. Yeah. That's the issue here is if Hubert Davis is looking at this and saying, I've lost Elliot Cadeau, a really, really good pick and roll guy, and I'm bringing in a guy who has struggled at that. I'm going to pay him comparable money. North Carolina's booster should be like, Hubert. we have questions about how you're using our capital allocation here. It's so again, this is not a Kyan Evans quality, issue. It's a question of value relative to return that you're going to get for it. And
right.
In the past couple of days, that has raced wildly past where I think it is reasonable to expect out of it. And if Missouri bows out of that, I think that's the prudent move. The market is thin at, combo guards right now, but better to be thin there than to overpay, because we talked about this too. And then I know we got to get out of here, but we talked about this today. What happens if you pay Kyan Evans more than you're paying Ant Robinson?
Yeah.
What's an agent going to do? What could an agent do? Going to come back, circle for that raise, and you know what he might think? Well, if Kyan's getting that, why not just have my guy dip into the portal? Why not just have my guy go in and see what we can get? So it's easy to talk about these things in isolation. Of, well, I would pay that. There are always unintended consequences from those choices. So better to avoid that, and better to avoid an overpay, and then get stuck in a situation where you're not getting good return for the investment of the NIL dollars.
Yeah. So we are going to kind of wrap this up. We're doing our best to kind of, make sure we are efficient in our time here. Mm-hmm. We are going to be moving into off-season mode. It was a couple weeks since we podcasted, and it'll be another couple weeks before we go again. So, Matt, when we talk again in 2 weeks, will Missouri have a completed roster?
No.
No?
No.
Will they have one more portal edition?
Probably yes. They go late every year with the big man. They wait that out till the absolute end.
Yeah, it was like May 20 something. They signed Gray. It was like the summer that they signed Vanover.
Yeah,
wasn't it? Like June.
Yeah, yeah. So,
well, he went through like a lot of the draft process too.
Yeah. So I'm, and I don't say that as like a thing to be like, oh, I'm fearful. It's just I think if they get another combo guard or they get another shooter, I think they'll feel like, okay, the backcourt's set. Let's make sure that we've got the right big to come in. I think that was the process last year with Josh, was making sure that they found the guy who fit the base parameters of what they wanted. That took some time. The portal
window is narrower this year than it was as far as entry
thank
into
God.
The portal.
It's half as long. Thank God this thing closes in 12 days.
I was going to say it was about 2 weeks.
Yeah, it closes 3 days before the NBA draft deadline. So recruitments can stretch past that, but thank God this thing's closing before the NBA draft deadline. It didn't need to be open for 60 days. It did not need to be 60 days. 30 days has already proven more than sufficient to get most of the guys in. So closes in 12 days, but I don't know necessarily that they'll have a big ratchet, but I think they can find a guard in the next 2 weeks. I think they'll be able to find a guard.
Yeah. Well, so whatever happens in the next couple of weeks, we'll be back to talk about it then.
Breaking. IG post from Kyan Evans. Committed to North Carolina.
Whew.
Take him off your boards, folks.
That is breaking news in the podcast. Wow. Man. The funny thing is, like, that just escalated in a hurry. Like I kind of felt like
came in the past couple of days. And
I feel like Missouri, they were kind of backburnering, and they're like, I feel like we can kind of get to him after the Final Four, or after the dead period, and whoop, that got sucked up real quick. I imagine the numbers are good. So we'll be back in a couple weeks to talk everything else that has happened in the portal. Thanks everybody for tuning in. If you're watching this, you're probably subscribed to Rock M Plus. Thank you for subscribing. We'll see you on the forums, and we'll talk to you in a couple weeks on this podcast. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to Rock M Radio, a proud partner of Fans First Sports Network. Rock M Radio is the official podcast network of Rock M Plus, a new and exciting subscription service provided by me and the other voices of Rock M Radio. Please take a few moments to head over to rockm.plus and sign up for an account today. The cost is only $5 a month, and the benefits include access to our live podcast, a subscriber-only message board, weekly newsletters, and more. If you enjoyed this episode of Rock M Radio and would like to see more just like it beamed directly into your personal device, make sure to click the subscribe button below and tell your friends. Our podcast feed is available through the Apple Podcast app for iPhone, Google Podcast app for Android, whatever app you listen to your podcast. You can also find Rock M Radio on Spotify. If you're looking for a podcast about your favorite team that is not the Missouri Tigers, Fan First Sports Network is your answer. A full podcast network loaded with the team-specific podcasts covering Major League Baseball, the NFL, NHL, NBA, MLS, and more. We'll be back with more episodes of Rock M Radio coming to you soon.